different, structures that you could do. So as somebody that's new or coming in, I would recommend exploring it, because if you don't have all where your business, where you think it's gonna funnel different, structures that you use to get yourself to the next level. Are you with the great? You say I'm not muted now?
Yep, we're talking.
Oh, good.
I just want to say I'm not, a license.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm Luis. Nice to meet you.
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Becky. Nice to meet you.
So if it sounds like I don't know how to answer any questions, it's like that.
I don't think I
But you
know
do
how to
because-
answer any questions here.
But you do, because you've been licensed for it, so, yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit, so enough to be dangerous. Ruiz, so just tell me a little bit, how long have you been licensed, or?
About, I started July last year.
Okay, so just.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Digging your-
now, it took too long to get into business, so, this is the time that I need to.
absolutely,
Start working on it.
no, 100%, so, my name is, just so you know a little bit about me, my name is Becky. I've been a real estate agent for 12 years. I am licensed in the state of Ohio, but I'm dually licensed in the state of Indiana. I have been teaching for a long time. I was on our ALC, I don't know, 3 or 4 years off and on, teaching education. So it is kind of my passion, teaching contracts and doing different things. So, winning the seller is, something that is a good conversation for me to have. We'll talk about it. Is it? Fine, so I do. Well, I usually. That's good.
They had this problem yesterday, and I don't know what he did. It's like, oh, I wish I could see what he.
Oh, I'm not that fancy. I'll just get more.
So are you from Cincinnati?
I'm more north,
Okay.
so Lebanon.
Okay.
Up past Kings Island.
Yeah.
And
That's Cincinnati.
yeah, that's what we say, like, when we go on vacation and they say, where are you from? We say Cincinnati.
Well, to me, it's-
Yeah. But it's half-hour drive, like exactly 30 minutes to get there.
yeah, I showed a lot of houses in Lebanon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still just, I don't know what to expect. I don't know how hard it's gonna be to get business. Am I gonna be able to pay my bills?
Yeah.
You know,
I completely understand that. So you, but I heard that you were licensed before?
I was, and I never did anything with it. I just got licensed.
Okay,
Yeah, and then work and life and things.
yeah, I completely understand.
It could be me.
I thought I did that.
do look it very hard, but I have muscle problems in my hand.
You'll be fine.
The only thing that I've learned, like the trick is to get that black floating bar. Well, I know how to make that go away.
Oh, I do controls.
It should be working now.
That whenever you mess with the Zoom controls, you have to really like. Get it to work again. That's what it is. Okay.
Okay, so today we're just kind of talking about, winning the seller. And to me, obviously it's talking about listing appointments, right? It's trying to win somebody over in an appointment. The reality is, you're not going to win them all. And if I'm being honest, sometimes people already know who they're going to work with, before you go into a meetings. Just if it's not somebody that you've gotten like a warm one-on-one, like somebody that you knew. If it's completely like cold, like you got it from an online lead, etc., those are a lot harder to obtain because they have different things that are in mind and sometimes it's very specific. So don't get disappointed when you don't get some of those that are, just very somebody you didn't know if it was an expired. I mean, those are usually like a 4% conversion, but it's just, those are harder to get. So today's agenda. So we're really gonna talk about qualifying like an A seller and following up with an appointment, kind of. You're gonna talk about whether it's like A, B, and C. A is somebody, they need their property on the market yesterday, there's a complete urgency behind it. B is somebody that, they're thinking of doing it, but maybe they're within 3 to 6 months. And then obviously your C seller is somebody that is probably more anytime after 6 months. They're wanting to maybe do it, but they kind of, maybe they need that push or that encouragement from you to get in there. We're gonna apply approaches to request an appointment from seller A. From an A seller, apply the pre-listing criteria to build seller's confidence. So you really want to have a checklist of what you're going to talk to them about. before you have, the appointment or during it. So you can, make sure you understand that and demonstrate your expertise in handling buyers' objections, to win business. So showing that, you can be kind of a bulldog when working with buyers and knowing that, there's different things you can offer in that, start. Okay, so we're gonna read this quote. While leads are vital to your sales business, seller listings are critical to your ability to build it to its highest level with the lowest cost and highest net. What are your thoughts regarding that?
I have very little experience, but what I notice is, yes, there are things, when you list the property, there are things that sometimes don't go as expected, but it's a lot less work.
Exactly. So I mean, listings ultimately, the more listings that you can hold, the more that you can grow your business from buyers to listings, right? And have more listings than you have buyers, the better the better time balance you'll have in your business, as far as you'll have more time to prospect and things like that. So listings will help you, work less because you're not having to be out on showing appointments and things like that. So if you can build your business at a minimum where you have a balance where it's 50-50, but if you can switch it to where, you're doing 70% listings and 30% with buyers, you have a lot more. And so you can build that business a lot, you can build things up more, you can have more of your own personal time back in your hands, which is good. And so that's just what we talked about last week was the last session was buyers to being your buyers and getting a signed agreement. We're doing the same thing with sellers. We're getting sellers and getting them to be, your client. Okay, qualified sellers, is somebody that's willing to do business within the next 14 days. So they really, really want to list. So, that's going in, and when you go into that appointment, you really want to have everything kind of mapped out for them. So this is somebody that's financially able to complete the transaction now. That, they have a place to go specifically, or if they don't, maybe you need to help them buy, but you're going to complete a strategy behind that. If you intend to capture their mindset, you need to be willing to follow up with them daily to secure the appointment. What do you need from me? It's just, it's really just asking for the appointment is the biggest thing. I know that you're looking into it. If we set an appointment, then I can show you exactly what I have to offer. And if there's anything that you need to do, to the house, we can discuss it. We can work through that situation. The goal of all seller leads is to get an appointment, so we can get the listing agreement. Listings give us additional benefits as well. And so listings, you can get people to call on that, different things, also you can get a buyer out of it, so it can be, a lot of different things that you can, put all together. Listings are not just, it can start with one listing with a client that you had, and then it can turn into a client, like I have one and 10 deals in.
Wow.
Right, on 10 deals in, I listed their house. I helped them, I buy another house, we sold that house. They, bought another house. Then their sister needed to buy a house, their mom needed to sell a house. Their, and then she needed to buy a house, their son needed to buy a house, their daughter needed to buy a house, then daughter needs to sell that house, buy a new build house, and now her sister needs to sell a house. So it just showing somebody that you are very, very competent in listing a house and going through the processes and showing communication can easily make them a fan. And so getting somebody to me, I think listings are your opportunity to create VIPs. They know your first class service, and it can just stem from there, and you can get multiple things from there. So I think it's very important to have a very streamlined approach to what you're doing throughout the whole process, and you can win them just from that first appointment. The 3 L's of the MREA, you have listings, leverages, and leads. Sellers are special because they bring us listings, but this is again what I talked about. You know, they can, again, one listing can lead into a funnel of business, you know, throughout the year. The basis of a great real estate business are leads, listings, and leverage. We love listings because they bring repeat and referral business and relationships. And that's what I mean by using that example, because I am doing something for that family every year or somebody they know every year. And it has been that way since I had met them almost not quite 10 years ago, probably 7 years ago. And it's been very, very consistent. And that,
What do you do?
What do you mean?
Yeah, well, you said that you do something for them every year.
Yeah, whether they referred
Okay.
a buyer to me
Yeah,
or a seller or somebody else in their family, because they have a very big family, had to buy. So again, it went from the client to the sister to the mom to the which I would call grandma, and then to the daughters, the son, Bex's sister, you know, and it's just been a revolving door. And it's no different than some of my other people where I had a client and then now I've done their son, their cousin, you know, and it travels. And it's just simply staying in touch. I mean, they invite me to their kids' graduation parties.
I was gonna say, you go for Thanksgiving.
And then not to Thanksgiving, but no, but I mean, I've been to their kids, you know, graduation parties and different things and been a part of some stuff in their life. But the biggest thing is just when you take something like that, the people that you've listed houses for and you've had a good experience relation, those are people that you want to stay in contact with because they're going to build, you know, the leverage, the leads. It can stem all from that. And it gives you the best marketing opportunity in real estate, more control over your time. So when you have a listing, you have an open house that can then drum buyers for you. You can also then take it from listings. You now have something that you can do Facebook ads on, which are relatively inexpensive through command. And so you can do those and utilize those. And then, you know, so there's a lot of different things that you can do with your listing. You can door knock it. I'm just letting you know about my listing. Now you could get neighbors, right? So it's not, that's what they're saying. Leverage what your listing is, you know, go out to everybody, invite your neighbors to your open house, let them know what you're doing, because then they're more likely to maybe list with you. When you sell the house or you go under contract real fast, send a letter, a handwritten letter to the 20 closest neighbors. The chances of you when they need to sell, pretty high, especially if you're sending, you know, something out, you know, because you had just done something in that area. I'm in doing a pop-by to them. You could drop stuff off at their door and say, hey, you know, I've got a listing down the street from you. Just thought, you know, happy, you know, Earth Day or whatever it is, spring, here's a seed packet for you. Feel free to pop by my open house. That's a great lead in to get people into your open house, yet meet some neighbors. And now you have contacts that could go into your database, which is leveraging your business and then getting leads for people that could eventually sell. So virtues of seller listings. So let's talk about that. Seller listings means marketing opportunities. So again, marketing opportunities. You're sending it out to Facebook. People are going to know this is what you do. You're also going to showcase how you do it and how well you do it. Are you using a photographer that's going to give you social media reels that you did not create? That you paid them a very small fee to do? And you've got video on there with slideshows and it looks incredibly professional, and it's not just you simply sharing the MLS, you're showing something of value. And that's out to your people on Facebook, but also you can send stuff like that. Like I said, the Facebook leads and stuff, that's marketing that can get opportunities. You have more control of your time with listings. Again, if you're not running out there, right? You could create a business doing expireds. You could also create, a business of being able to contact your sphere, because during the day, you're not going to be freed up, and you could call people from 3 to 5 if you wanted, or you could call them in the morning, because you have freed up space, more time that you could put back into your day. Again, you want to leverage it back on getting leads. And that's really what the business is. Listings maximize your per hour compensation. You are not going to put as much time and energy into a listing as you are a buyer. There's just simply, you're not having to run out, you're not showing properties, you may have somebody drop your sign out for you, you know what I mean? And leverage that, where you get to a point where you don't need to drop your own signs, or you have, or you drop them off yourself, but either way, kind of whatever works for you. My apologies, I thought that was turned off. You can do more volume in listings than buyers. So when you're working with buyers, you're still having to be out and do the hustle. So if you're having to show 4 or 5 houses in a day, and which I can tell you 2 weeks ago, I was showing almost 5 houses every day for about a period of almost a week and a half, because I had many buyers. That is a lot of time and energy that I did not have any openings to spend to get new business. This week, I'm working on 2 listings and stuff, and now I have more time to make calls, and I'm setting more appointments, and I'm able to have more consultations with new buyers. I'm able to have more consultations with new listings, and potentially get those. So it does, when you are listing, it obviously this week is a lot different because I have more free time, which then can allow you to get more volume, because you can handle more listings than you can sometimes buyers. Being on the front end of pricing creates an intimate knowledge of the market. So, when you have a bunch of listings, specifically, and you can show that a lot of your listings have sold over or for more, or they haven't had as many price reductions, and in some cases you still will. I have a listing right now that we just can't sell it, but we will. It is what it is, but there's other hurdles there. But it's not always just taking any listing, if they want $75,000 higher, you can tell them what they want, and you can maybe take that and say, okay, look, if we're not getting anything, then we need to come down to where we should be within 2 weeks. Have that set, so you're not wasting money on photos, etc., and having a longer experience with someone. But knowing pricing for different areas, right? Go into it, and when I list, I'm not going to know what I'm going to list somebody's house for when I go into a listing appointment. You never should, because you're gonna be close, right? But you're gonna look at the house, and now you can go back in your mind and go back in. I call it 2-part, where you can look at some of those comparables, and then you can go, okay, based on what I've seen here, this is what it would be, and that's just being on that front end pricing and saying, look, from my experience and what I've looked at in the market, this is what we're going to create a plan for you that is going to make sense, but we're going to be on top of it and know if something's not working, and we'll make those adjustments, because with the shifting market, sometimes we have to make adjustments.
So go ahead. Good. Is that something that you have a general idea when you go in for the appointment, and then when you see everything, talk to the person, you start to develop additional details, and then do you take that information back to your office or back to your home with you when you're, and then you present them with
Right, everybody does it differently. I like to do mine in a two-part step. Because there's two reasons for that. First is I don't like to give someone the keys to the castle for free. Right? And I've had this happen to me even recently when I go against my gut and do it anyway, right? Give them the keys to the castle. They can do one of two things with it. They can go, oh, okay, thank you so much, that I just needed to confirm with who they were going to list with to make sure that that's correct, right? And then they go, list with that. Next person. You've given them, your ideas of what to do to the house, and you're basically giving them free information. But some people will tell them, okay, this is what we'll do right then. Let's go ahead and list. But if they're hesitant to sign that agreement, you know what I mean? We'll say, well, let me go back in and do our due diligence to make sure that it is the right number, right? And let's, would it be okay if we set an appointment, or you're meeting with a couple other people? Let's set an appointment, in a day or two, and we can go over those numbers and get the process started. Right, where you can then list it. You just have to determine what you're willing to give and what works for you. And I feel like every time I give the keys, it is when I lose the listing. And it's almost every time I've done it that way. But some agents swear by it and do it, and it works for them. So you're going to find what works for you. But a lot of people use a two-part system. And I agree with the two-part system because it gives you a better knowledge to be able to go back in and securely know. But some clients will still try to poach exactly what they want out of you. And you have to try to gauge what you need to do to try to get the listing, and see what you can. But it just depends. It's just, you feel it out. Did that answer questions, or did you have one too? That was the same question. Okay. Yeah, so you just kind of figure out what I would encourage you to do, is try it both ways for yourself, because then you're going to know what works for you. But to me, to be on the front end of pricing, a two-step process, you're always going to know. Because you can go back in and look at those numbers and 100% say, look, yeah, this is what we do. And then they can't come back and say otherwise.
It's surprising to me that they would interview different agents.
Oh, yeah.
Could list their, I mean, well, I guess if you had more on the line, but like my first time, I just called Sipsy Klein.
Right.
I just called them and I was like, I'm gonna buy a house. How do I do that? And they just gave me an agent.
Correct.
And that's just how I did it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of agents, there's a lot of people that will interview multiple people to decide what they want to do. And it is fairly common.
Okay.
That they'll have one or two. Some people like to be the first appointment and to lock it down and get it done. I'm more successful being the last appointment. You just have to determine where you are when it comes to closing that. But for me, like an example, like I wasn't the last appointment and the last thing, but I think that they had a particular thing that they wanted, and they wanted, you know what I mean? Like, so it was like, I don't think I was gonna win no matter what I did in that situation. And then, but it is having where you have your listing presentation and you have all your value added and everything. And basically you're giving them no reason as to why they shouldn't use you. And you say, okay, well, let's go ahead and, do you feel confident? Like, did you want to, think of, you don't give them the chance to think about it, right? You say, should we go ahead and we could execute a listing agreement, we'll delay entry, so then this way we can come up with a plan. We can decide what price we want to do, right? Because we can write to be determined on the thing, we're gonna scratch that out and initial it, right? But you come up and say, then this way, you've got somebody who is gonna go in and take their time. They're not just trying to win you in this appointment. We're gonna make sure we do it right, and we're gonna have a plan. That's hard to say no to. some people will, but that is harder to say no to, or they're hesitant, you can tell anytime, okay. Would you like me to follow up with you tomorrow or the next day and see about how we could get things started? And so we can get things, going for you. And again, if we know that we're 6 months out, that's no problem. We'll just go ahead and we can make a commitment. And then this way I can give you all my advice. So we can make sure that we're planning it the right way, that we're staging it the right way. We're doing any improvements that we need to do. And I've got a great list of contractors and stuff for you. And I look forward to helping you all the way through the process, because really, when you're going to list, even if it's not for 3 months, we want to make sure that, we're on communications and stuff. The big thing is you don't want to give people advice and you're doing it for months and then they go list with somebody else and you just spend a lot of energy. And that would be very difficult if you've spent, a bunch of time on something like that. But properly marketing the listings brings you more business. So having a very good marketing strategy and presenting that very well into your appointment, I think is very important. Show them, what you offer when it comes to marketing. And I think that is a kicker, because it is, in some instances, it's just a matter of putting it on the market, but in some instances, it takes a little bit more legwork. Any more questions? So we have seller service cycle. So step 1, is leads conversion. So lead generate and lead follow-up is very important with regards to that. So if you keep a 7-step, like if you get a seller lead, right? And you put them in a 7-steps process, if you follow the different 7 steps, and some you may have to repeat to get to them, then this will help you to convert the seller. Lead conversion, lead generate, and lead follow-up. So really, depending on how much they want you to follow up, are you following up with them weekly? Like, what do you need? What questions do you have? Do you need, need anything? And pre-listing transaction today, in particular. So talking about having that checklist. Why are we selling? Why? Oh, okay. Well, I need to be close. Okay, closer. Well, what time frame does that look like for you? When do you need to make that dream happen? You want to be closer to your daughter because she's getting ready to have a baby. Okay. When is she due having a baby? When are they graduating? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes they'll say, we want to downside, because our daughter is getting ready to graduate and we're ready to go move to Florida. Okay. When are they graduating? Well, not for 2 years. Okay. So now, where in the process they are, so how you need to follow up with that. And that they're going to be a seller and they're not quite there, but you're going to stay in contact with them. Listing consultation and transaction today. So you really want to know, in the listing consultation, that's after we've talked about the points, right? You're bringing up what they talked about in that appointment. You're reminding them, hey, I know, right? And you're talking about, some of the things that are important to them. You're showing that it's important to you. So it's very important to know those things ahead of time, because if you're showing that you understand them and you're relaying that you heard them, you heard their concerns and what's important, then you have a better time in a listing consultation about what you need to do to get them to the market. And that at that point is when you're trying to get them to sign in that consultation. If not, you're following back up and you're setting a second consultation to go over price and everything and say, okay, well, let's set up a second one. I want to go back over the price with you. And I think it'll be important now that I've had my time to look at everything, and it'd be important for me to show you what I found so we can look into it. Now your second appointment with them. So now they can see that, okay, well, they're diligent. You've spent some time. So if you are able to do it in the second portion, then they can, if they didn't want to sign the first time, you were setting up that second appointment saying, okay, well, let's go over the real numbers, that would make sense after I've done that. And then, so let's go ahead. And then you're asking, well, what would hold you back? Well, I just don't really, oh, well, that's not a problem. We can go up, we can sign, we'll delay entry, meaning I can market it to any of my people, in our office, and we have, there's a lot of agents that I know that we can talk to about it, but it gives you, the best thing is you don't have to worry about figuring out what your plan is. We'll have a plan, and then we take it at your pace. Because you can do it, and that's reassuring them that it's your pace. It's your game, but I've got you. So let's not have you worry about it. And then you're creating just that strategy with that. Servicing and marketing, day 16 in the transaction, working with buyers and sellers. So that's talking about, open houses. What are we doing with those now? We haven't gotten offers, let's figure out what we're doing. We're a little bit, farther into that, servicing it, marketing it, and, well, we're doing, now we've done our price reduction. It's still not getting traction. I'm using a real world example, right? Because I'm going that it's not getting traction. And I know we didn't want to do an open house, but let's do one. Because it's not necessarily going to sell your house, but it's going to give us an idea of what the public thinks about your house, because we're not getting enough showings, or we're not getting enough things. So we want to kind of know. So we're going to do that open house. And if the open house doesn't go well, okay, well, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see what I can do. And I'm going to do some Facebook ads. And it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but again, you have to show them that you're trying, and you're going to, run a $50 ad. It's going to run over the next 10 days, and you're going to see if you can get people to respond. The only difference is if you're getting them to respond, right? It's showing them, yes, there are people, we just couldn't get, people in there, and it's showing them, they're wanting to see that they're still getting traction. And then after you've done that, it's you're not able to get a showing, then you're like, okay, well, let's go ahead and try another price reduction. We can tell people are out there. They're calling, they're asking about it, they are reaching out to me, but something isn't grabbing them in, and it has to be the price and or the condition, right? And so sometimes if you can talk to the Facebook ad people, you can find out, well, what did they think about the house? You're using it all for feedback and maybe trying to get some leads, but more feedback for them. Offers and negotiation, transact day. So now what we did, it worked. We're under contract, right? So we're going to negotiate a good deal for you, Mr. and Mr. Seller, and explain to them, what we're doing. And then we get contract close, and we're working through, closing and how that works, and then post-closing transactions. And day 19, so just saying, okay, well, this is what, you now have to unoccupy the property, leave it clean, make sure that you, because if it's post-closing, then you have to make sure that you the utilities and have those stopped as of the day that occupancy is going to be handled. And so you handle those extra things that you have. Do you guys have questions on how a seller service cycle works, and how from start to get them all the way till we close? Do you have any ahas from anything that I have talked about, or things that you want to write down, or things we've discussed? Anything that stood out to you that you didn't know, maybe?
Question about the photography of the residents. Is that something that Keller Williams has a platform for, where you can take your pictures yourself and it goes into some kind of program and puts it together? Is that, or do you hire a photographer?
Absolutely. So specifically, so Keller Williams Seven Hills does not pay for photography, and we don't have any kind of photography platforms. Not specifically here. Now, some of the teams and things like that, they may have photographers that they pay for in a team and all of those things. But specifically for me, we have a vendor, Daniel Ziegler. He is one of our photographers with Nextdoor, who has it, and but you typically would pay for your own photography. I can't ever recommend, unless you're a professional photographer, you should never be taking your own pictures. 2 reasons for that. One, they're paying you, right? Taking your own pictures, they're want to be paying for you. You didn't even hire a professional to do it. They may not realize you're a professional photographer unless you can share that you're a professional photographer and this is something that you had from a past life or what you had done. But by hiring a professional photographer, and I don't use Daniel, although I know he's fantastic, you know, there are other ones out there where you can know when you go to a deal, like I know that my photographer, I know how much roughly it's going to cost. I know what angles that I like to take of things. I know also too that if I don't want to measure, I can maybe pay them to measure. If we think there might be square footage wrong, then they can do estimates of some of that. In addition, they can create marketing kits that can create social media reels that you can use that you didn't have to, you know, I paid like $25 to get my stuff put into a marketing kit where they come up with social media videos and stuff, you know, they're just reels that are for property that look incredibly professional, and I can post them on social media and make those look good. But no, I think it's important to find, you know, different photographers that you could work with that would do that. And you can say, look, my photographers are going to make, you know, this look amazing. And it's even doing it for the angles. Like I had one, we just did exterior shoot, but I still paid a professional because I needed certain angles to not show a mountainous cliff because we just wanted people in. It was a rough, the house was rough, it had been expired. The photos, someone had gone in and taken their own photos. And that was something I did with the expired. I said, you're not that I'm picking apart, but I said the photos are all wrong. They showed all the stuff on the inside and it just shows the house just a complete mess. Probably don't want the photos online. You want good exterior photos that are going to draw somebody in with the price, and that you're going to make them be curious and you're going to get a lot of people in. And it's so different if you've got a luxury listing, right? If it's something over 500,000 or even in 400,000, right? There are certain things that they might want, you know, that you may need to showcase. And videos, if you're over 500,000, like a video of you walking in and having a professional, like an actual video, although it's going to cost you more money, that is part of your marketing offer to those listings, and it's going to set you apart. Well, I offer videography and things like that. We're going to do a beautiful video of your listing. You know, you may not do that in all price points, but you know, if you list with me, this is what you could expect. And this is some examples of what some of mine look like. And they're fantastic. You know, the other thing is if you've got anything with land, you should probably have a drone so you can see all of the land around it. You know, you don't do drone photography for everything, right? But if you've got something on, you know, 3+ acres, you really want to showcase the lot. Or if you've got a different kind of lot that's different that you couldn't see just from a photography standpoint, and you want to just show how wonderfully spaces, the drone photography will really work. So yeah, I definitely recommend that's part of just figuring that out, part of your piece when you list kind of what you'll offer as far as a photography piece, because people, that's one reason they choose to work with people, because that helps with marketing and showcasing the house.
Forgive me for missing this, but you were mentioning the second appointment. Is that a second listing consultation with?
If needed, yes, if needed. So like if they're hesitant to sign, I always tell people I like to do things in 2 pieces, right? Where I can go back in and show you my value add that price isn't always done on the first time because you want to go back in, you want to get a good grasp, and you want your agent to do a thorough job and take their time and not just have that price and do a true plan for you. And I'm opted to do that for you. So I'm going to go back. And if you're happy, we can go ahead and we can go ahead and sign today, and we can write to be determined, the listing part, and then we'll follow up, the next day we'll meet and we can have a dollar amount for that. But at least then this way I can start, while I'm doing that, I can start giving you advice on what we need to do to the house. So we're going to be ready in a couple of weeks, so we don't miss any time for you. That can also help them sign. The second point, if they're interviewing other people, it gets you back in front of them. If they had other people while we're interviewing, okay, great. Would it be okay if we set up, and you could even do it in Zoom if you wanted. I want to show you that I've taken my due diligence and gone back in and really honed what I believe to be price, and then, we can create a plan for you. Oh, boy. Keys to converting your A sellers. So the moment you get a lead, you want to respond right away to lead inquiries. You don't want to leave, any time on the table. Let's be honest, if it's somebody that is wanting to truly list their house, 10 minutes makes a difference. Because if it was an online lead or wherever it came from, you're probably not the only one that they got a hold of. However, if it's a warm lead and it was from a referral, maybe, but you still don't want to wait like a day or two to call them back. You really want to try to call within, a good amount of time, or at least reach out to them and say in a text that says, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. Would you have time today at 2 or 6 to chat regarding your request? And then if they're like, well, I'm kind of busy today. Okay. Would 4 or 6 tomorrow work for you? Or we could, just for a quick 5 to 10 minute call to talk about what you're, looking to do. And then that's when you set the appointment because the goal is you want to have that 5 to 10 minute call. And that's the pre-listing. You're asking your questions, right? You've got all those ahead of time. Get valid and complete contact information and save it to command and create an opportunity. So, if you do get a lead, you want to automatically put it into command. You want to be able to set them up on a drip. Whether it's a task-driven drip for you, saying you need to call them today, you need to call and text, email, because until you can get them on the phone to have that conversation, you don't have them yet, right? You didn't get that consultation. So you want to work hard with 7 to 10 calls to potentially get them, or if you have to do it through email, that's why you do a drip. And it's a reach out drip, whether it's through email, text, call, you kind of create your plan, and command can let you do that. So you could create a task driven, like something where it tells you to call or not, and then, or you can set a campaign up in command for emails to go out. If it's somebody that you're like, okay, well, this one's a little bit harder, so you can do the emails that would be in addition to your calling. Determine their motivation to sell so you can speak to it. That's the number one. We want to know why they need to sell. And that you hear them and you understand it. And you relate to it. Don't be afraid of the person that says, well, we just outgrew this house and I can't, or somebody that says, I can't stand my neighbor, but I have to find a house first to buy. Don't be afraid to do contingent sales. Or suggest it if they can't buy before a lot of people can't buy before they have to sell. So you could say, well, did you know that we could list your house and it'd be contingent upon you finding a place to buy? A lot of people don't know that you can do that, but you can. You can write it. I've written an addendum that says, okay, seller will have 45 days to find a house to buy. Because their house is under contract, but this contract won't start until they found the house, you know what I mean? And we found one in a week, you know?
How often do
Buyer
you think
was
that
willing.
happens?
You know, it depends on the market, you know, if you've got a house that's gonna take some time to sell, now, you know, I mean, that's. You may not find a buyer being, or willing to do that, but if you're. You know, in the hot market of Mason where, you know, we're seeing 12 offers and things are going 30 and 40 over, yeah, you might have a little bit more wiggle room on that. And I did, you know, I've seen it a couple of times that people are willing to do that. Or you go out, you have your listing photos done, right? You have your contract already signed. And you're looking for houses and you tell them, okay, we'll write it contingent upon us getting our house listed and on the market in a contract, you know, because you can do it that way too. I'm seeing it more and more. That people are doing that. Not a lot of agents sometimes want to have to mess with that. I had a lot of experience doing it that way. And I won listings. I had somebody that had listed their house, sold their house, listed their house, sold it. I'm like, what are you? It would go pending and switch from listing agent to listing agent. I'm like, the world is happening. And I realized, oh, they have anxiety. They needed someone to hold their hand and understand and be like, no, like it's actually okay. And we did that and we understood, but we did a contingent sale. And in fact, I won in multiple offers and their house wasn't even listed. So I mean, it can be done. It is, but it is how you're writing it. And they had appraisal gaps and things like that in their offers, but you know, there's different things that you can do. And it doesn't hurt if a house has been on the market for a while, right? And you don't give them, like, say they've been on the market for a while. And they haven't been able to sell, but you need to sell your house. You could say, you know, as buyer's agent, well, we'll give you what you want, so you don't have to do a price reduction, just give us a little bit of time to sell. But the kicker is you'll let the people know that we're gonna have everything, our ducks in a row, so this way you could be on the market tomorrow. So your house is always list ready, you know, it's thinking outside the box, but know their motivation and what they have to do. So if their debacle is, well, we haven't found a house yet, you can move past that. You can move past that and you can still, you say, well, I understand that, but we still want to make sure that we're out there looking and we want to be ready. So in order for us to be ready, we're gonna have this agreement signed and our pictures are in the wings. So we know that we're going to be listing with me while I'm trying to shop, you know, people in my office and people that I know that may actually want to buy your house. And then you'll have contract and it'll make it a lot easier time for you. So things that you can do, but knowing that motivation is key, and setting an appointment, a time and a date for as soon as possible, and get them a pre-listing packet. So you can have pre-listing questions that you have, but then you can also ask them to fill out. You can do it one or two ways. You can have them fill out a packet to you and then send it back. That shows that you're thorough. You know, and say, could you please send this back to me the day before our appointment, so I'm ready for you. You know, or you do a couple pre-listing questions so you can gauge, and then you could ask them to fill out the packet. Those packets can show a different level of professionalism. And so they're helpful. What sellers want most from their agent? Well, we've got 27%, but what they want most is to help price the home competitively. They really want to help sellers market homes to potential buyers. And help sell the home within a specific time frame. Set expectations. Don't set an expectation that you can't meet. Help seller find ways to fix up the home to sell it for more.
What's the 27?
And remember, sorry.
What's the
The colors on here are different than the colors on mine, so I'm just looking at it real quick. Remember that 27% of sellers use their realtor previously. So they have a good fiduciary relationship with their agent. So the 27% is an other, it's that agent that they've used in the past. So you're trying to remember that you have to appeal to the other things because 27% of them are gonna use, again, like I said, when you go to an appointment, sometimes they already know maybe someone that they're going to use or have in mind, and you're trying to outstand that.
So 27% is. They want their agent to be the one they used before.
Yeah, it says, remember, 27% of sellers used their realtor previously.
I guess I don't see how that adds up, sorry. Like. So what? So these are things that they want other than. The seller than who they used before. So everything.
Yeah, so if you, and I can't see, so I'm gonna stand up, but because my colors are different, but if you're looking at here, you know, you've got your orange, right, which is your 21%. Help price the home competitively and help seller market the home. Green, help price home competitively. Green is help sellers market their home to potential buyers. So 20% of people want you to be able to market the home. Yellow, 16%, you want them to help sell the home within a specific time frame. And blue is you want to help 16%, want to help the seller find ways to fix up the home to sell it for more. And the 27% is other. It is people genuinely do want to work with their previous agent because they had a trust built, they had a relationship, right? They had experience with them. They know what to expect, right? So if you can check these other boxes, the idea is hopefully you can outcome the 27% and get them, you know, not to do that. But most of the times if they're reaching out to other people, they're reaching out because of these other reasons. You know, there was something that they feel that maybe they could be left on the table, you know, that they didn't do. Does that answer your question or still not?
I think kind of. It's just a little bit, it's just presented a little, I don't really understand the presentation. It's like the.
I think what I see, now that you've questioned it, I think I see what you're saying. Because I thought that was strange too, that was an other, but it seems like if that was on top, maybe like it shouldn't be called other. Maybe it should say, most sellers want an agent that they're familiar with or have used in the past.
Well, I didn't put together
right.
obviously the whole thing.
Yeah, not.
But what I'm saying, what it is this is a survey provided by home buyers and sellers from NAR in 2021. Okay. And so what they surveyed, right, was specific things, and they had specific key things. And one of the things that I guess people had come back with, and they call it other, is because they probably used it in different ways, right? And said it in different ways versus just saying they want their agent to, you know, their previous agent. But I wouldn't get stuck on that necessarily. What I would get stuck on is most 27% of people want to use their previous agent. And if you were not their previous agent, does that make sense? Then you're trying to be better than them, and you're looking at some of the other things that they're looking for. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, that's how I look at it. So it's really the total value you bring to the transaction is what will get you repeat business. The idea is you want to become the 27%, right? That's the ultimate goal is, and you weren't here for my last example from the beginning, but again, I had a client, we listed a house. I've done it, well, it's more than 10 transactions now with them. I set that and I have become that 27%, and probably for them, they're, you know, at 90, and I just had a seller that I had helped, previously, and they have the buyer, yet they still wanted me. Right? You know, I had to take a step down on my commission, but they still wanted me to fully advise them and do everything because, again, I was part of that 27%. It didn't matter that they could have saved the money. No, they wanted me to advise them because I was that trusted person.
What a compliment. That's
It was.
awesome.
It was definitely a good compliment. So build confidence and trust. What are some ways you can build confidence and trust with your sellers? Any ideas or thoughts?
I'm just thinking maybe that you're right there on it all the time. You're calling them, you're following up, you're responding to their requests, emails, phone calls. And you're ready with information.
I think that's great because the idea is you are ready with information, right? So that your first goal is to build confidence and trust when you're connecting with someone. And so it's exuding confidence, showing attentive professionalism. And so that's kind of what you're mentioning too, is going back with them, still just, you know, answering all their questions, you know, it's attentiveness, you know, to doing it that way. Then your focus during the process is not to sell, right? Because you're trying to build the connection with them. It's to provide value, meet their real estate needs, and secure the appointment. So you want to give them information, you know, you want to meet what they want and get the appointment. They need to experience what it's like to work with somebody who asks questions, somebody who listens, somebody who cares, you know. And there's a balance, you know, showing them what you know and see why they should be confident in you while not overstepping what they're saying, because you don't want to overtake the conversation. You want them to lead it and add to it. You want to have a balance that you're not taking, not overtaking a conversation by asking too few questions and not showing enough care. So, you know, you still want to ask enough questions. You don't want to just be, oh, okay, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. You know, get in those thoughts and questions. So there's 7 close to appointment tactics. Number 1, show the benefits. Take back close. Negative post close. Give them what they're looking for, a trial close, an assumptive close, and tie downs. So you don't want to leave any conversation asking for appointment without asking for the appointment multiple times. At the end of the day, you should always be asking for the appointment, and the worst they can do is say no. You don't say, would you like to set an appointment? You say, would Tuesday at 6 work for you for us to meet? You know what I mean? Because if you said, would you be interested in setting an appointment with me? Well, they can say no to that pretty easy. You know what I mean? Remember your value proposition. You're going to work hard for them and do a great job. And they're going to benefit you from having you in the long run. So it's success is not this job is as much about mindset. It is about your mindset about these things. You know, you just bring everything, you know, together during this appointment, you know, tying down the loose ends, you know, appointment tactics. This is just everything you can do to close the appointment.
I'm not familiar with those words, really, the terminology, like negative, positive, close, take back. Is that in MREA?
It might be. This doesn't necessarily say, I can give you my interpretation. So you're showing the benefits that it would make sense for them to have an appointment.
It was in Ignite yesterday.
Was it? Okay.
But I mean, I know I didn't really understand then.
I know, we didn't really get into it,
Yeah,
like, we don't have the definitions of those in our book.
Okay, so a take back close would really mean you're taking it back into your hands, right? So you're not letting them you're just saying, okay, so. Would Tuesday at 6 work for you? Or I could also do Wednesday, during the day at 1. Right, so you're taking back the situation, you're just saying, I'm going to set the appointment, negative, positive close, if we don't necessarily meet, right? Then you don't know, what's happening, in the market and stuff, so. Let's just, have nothing to lose in this case, right? Meeting with me, it's a very free consultation. Right? So you're making positive, this is a free consultation to you, so there is no, real negative to us meeting. It's free, we can discuss that for you. So does Tuesday work for you at 6? Right? So you're just showing them that, hey, it doesn't have to be negative, like thinking, oh, we're making commitment. We don't have to make a commitment tomorrow. I just want to show you what we could do. And what things we'll look at. This way we can get a feel. Give them what they're looking for. So that's part of asking the questions, right? If they're looking for someone who is a go-getter, be a go-getter, right? If they're looking for answers more on price or what they need to do, well, if we set the appointment, we can probably discuss a plan. They need a plan, give them the plan, right? And you can give them a plan by meeting. A trial close. You can give them, this is, you can try what you think will close, this to get the appointment, and that's what they mean by trial. So, right, attempt it to see if you can get the appointment. If that doesn't work, assume that they could close, trying to be assumptive close, meaning, okay, well, I understand, your hesitation, except, again, even if this appointment is not, meeting with me and you decide not to work with me, you're going to get value from this. And ultimately it's going to help you. So, assumptive closes, meaning you're going to assume that they're going to say yes, right? And then tie it down. Just again, Tuesday at 6. Does that help break that down a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain number 4 again? So give them what they're looking for. Is that less about information? And you mentioned sort of like demonstrate some of the traits in a realtor that they're looking for. What kind of questions or what would you listen for to
Yes,
understand that?
absolutely. So part of my pre-listing question is, what are you looking, and I don't necessarily have a list, and for some different ones, like I'll have more of a list. But one of the biggest questions, what's your motivation to sell? What are you looking for in an agent, right? That's your biggest one.
Yeah, just direct.
Be direct. What are you looking for in an agent? Or especially if I know it's an expired and it didn't work out. Obviously, it didn't work with your last agent. What did they drop the ball on? Right? Because again, you want to give them what they want, right? If their thing is, I want an agent who's going to know exactly about the price or whatever, you know what I mean? Then be that person. Like, so when you know different people's personality types and you know what they want, right? All you have to do is shift yourself into molding what they want you to be. And it is already who you are. You just are giving them, you're asking them for the level of expectations that they need. And they don't realize when you're trying to set the appointment, you know what I mean? That's part of, you're saying, well, okay, well, I just really want someone who will come in and give me an idea, whatever, about the house. Right away, this could be a wasted appointment. However, if you win them over with a relationship, it could work. So if that's what they need, well, I'm happy to give you a free consultation tomorrow. And it'd be more high level, right? Because you're not going to give them the whole keys. But, but then you're still giving them some of what they want. Then they're going to see all the benefits that it strings for you. So I hope hopefully that helps. That helps. Okay. Good. And that's not necessarily from a book. That's just from my thoughts. Okay, so questions versus objections. When a question is asked, simply answer it. You don't have to elaborate and take it in, to tangents. Sometimes they just want an answer. They don't need the life story. When an objection comes up, that you do want to address. A lot of times they just sometimes, and I do the same thing, right? We backpedal, right? When we do stuff, and if you simply just answer a question and be confident, right? That's sometimes all that they want. We've talked a lot about objections throughout this thing. Sometimes we need to step back and make sure that we're hearing the objection before we address it. Responding to every question like an objection can be exhausting. So you don't want that. So if you're not quite sure what the objection is, sometimes it can be a question. They may be asking you what a question. It might not be an objection. It could be a question. So if you have to take a minute and step back, right? If you have to repeat the question, so then you can get in your mind, oh, okay, it was a question. Oh, okay, so you want to understand how I would handle the situation if XYZ happens. Okay, in that case, right, they're going to correct you if that wasn't quite what they were asking, right? And then you're going to answer it. So just make sure that you know that it's just a question and not whether it's necessarily an objection to you. If a client says, why are you suggesting such a low price range? Just provide your answer. If they ask if you would consider listing it significantly higher, you can say, no, I wouldn't. The market metrics don't suggest a higher price if you want to sell on the timeline you've given me for moving closer to your grandchildren. It was just a question. You know what I mean? It's just, just a question. They're not giving you an objection. They're not objecting to it. They just want to know what you're doing. You said you want to move closer to your grandchildren, etc. I'm taking that into effect. Your daughter's about to have a baby, right? If we go up a little bit higher, we may then eventually have to come down. So if we can just go right at what the market says, it says when you can go right at what the market says, we have a better chance of going on under contract more quickly within like a week or so, or maybe even multiple offers, depending, not always, but we have a better chance. And so, just be real specific that we're doing this because you have this reasoning. So we don't want to miss the mark and have to waste our time with price reductions if needed.
Would you in that case, give them, the market metrics don't support a higher number. It's really direct, right? So
yeah,
and you followed it up with a lot of sort of follow-up to kind of give them a picture of what that would look like.
If you feel like you need to give them a picture, give them a picture. Be direct, answer the question. If they look bewildered, then you can add more to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just curious, would you give them two scenarios, scenario one, let's say we did price it higher, here's what would happen. And that allows them to come to that conclusion themselves, or is that just too much?
You have to, sometimes more can be too much, right? And you can lose them. To be honest, sometimes it's really about, well, if you have to redirect, I'm going based on your time frame in your timeline. And so in my experience, if we're listing above kind of what the market says, right, and we're not being as conservative, which is where I would be, which is a little conservative to meet your timeline, that would be my reasoning. So what is more important, your timeline or a price point, right? So then if they say, well, price point, say, okay, well, that is something that we could try. Market is telling me right around here, what I'm experiencing is this, right? And that's where you can answer about if we are inflating it above roughly what they're saying, then you tend to miss the market. And then you have to do a reduction then sometimes you still lost your audience, and then if you reduce down to where you started. Sometimes you have to go below that because you've now been on the market longer, and so people are expecting that that's not. You know. What it would be. Does that help?
Yeah, so you're saying like draw on their other priorities.
Correct. Yeah,
Kind of find out which is,
try to find out what's more important, yeah, and then if you truly don't believe that it is worth that, and I didn't get a listing for one, and again, I still pat myself on the back because I was right and wrong. An agent, promised them that, oh yeah, no, I could list for $299. Okay. You couldn't, but I said, look, ma'am, we could list it for $299, but now in reality. You're gonna get price reductions regardless of what you're seeing in the market. You wanna sell it for as is. The house is beautiful. It has lots of potential. Unfortunately, what we're seeing now is things dated on the market sit longer. So I would suggest that we list significantly under 250 to draw people in, but I still see it probably going around 225-ish. You know, and that would be my opinion. I said, but if you think that we could start off higher, I'm happy to do that for you, but we can make that adjustment. She didn't want to hear me. That's fine. She did list with an agent. 60 days later, after they did the $299, then they dropped to 270, then they dropped, and they finally sold it for $220. I mean, I was right. It was, you know, I didn't get the listing, but they'll have taken some, they realized that the agent had bought the listing. I'm honest and I won't buy a listing. Because you can, one, take the risk of getting a negative review. Two, you know what I mean? Like people thinking, oh, you promised, but you didn't, you know, things like
What
that.
does that mean? To buy the listing, the agent license?
Yeah, they'll tell them whatever price they want to hear, even though that's not what they can sell the house for.
Oh.
I call that buying the listing.
Okay.
Yeah, you just give them false information, basically saying, oh yeah, I could do that for you. And then when you can't, you tell them, well, we tried. But you weren't honest with that.
Maybe that's a tactic that people are taught to do or encouraged to do. Do you think? I mean,
Some people could. I'm just not going to lie to a seller. That's not who I am. I would rather have listings that are selling closer to their purchase price and not, you know what I mean, having a realistic expectation of what something could be. Now, if they wanted me to start higher and I had told them that, hey, we have to make the reductions, are you okay with that? Then I'm okay with that. That's what I tried to tell that particular person. But I would gather to imagine that that was a very complicated transaction because I could tell from the seller, it would have been a mess because I can imagine what that was like when they didn't do it right. So. Yeah, I mean, you can try to, again, buy the listings and tell them everything they want to hear. But in the long run, being honest and saying, hey, we can start out at the price you want, but if it's not working in 2 weeks, are you okay if we go in a different direction?
it's not particularly, it's not ethical for them to know.
And no,
Then we still owe a duty to customers, even if they're not clients.
I agree with that statement. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that pay for lead sources. If they're going on an appointment, they're going to say whatever it is that they have to say to get the appointment. I'm not one of those. But you'll find people out there who will. If they persist, they might say another agent will list my house for more. So this is again, where we go into that. What I hear you saying is the amount you make on the sale is important. I'm happy you brought that up. I'd love to cover that when we meet. Again, you're trying to get the appointment. So again, I would never talk about price in a phone call, not really. Well, I really need to see your house first. Let's go ahead and set that appointment. You know what I mean? That's how I would do it specifically. And then also the pre-listing packet is going to a lot of handling your objections for you. Do you guys have any takeaways on this section?
I don't know if So I guess I have questions about the appointment in there.
Okay, yeah,
So that's coming up.
it should be. The purposeful approach, as we move today, we want to go from E to P, personal perspective. What do we mean? And I'll probably have to start talking faster, because I just tend to be behind. Move from being entrepreneurial to purposeful, working with proven systems and models to achieve more. Much of what we talked about in Ignite, is create a business that's large and profitable. So you want to engage in these models, as they do work, and do that. Everything from the pre-listing packet to the consultation checklist and the listing presentation, is all available in Command and Designs. And we encourage you to use those or get them from somebody. You know, if it's somebody, ask them if they have a checklist, if they would mind sharing it. Most people wouldn't. If you're trying to help somebody, I wouldn't mind. But some people don't always have specific things. And they may have more lists when they're meeting with strangers than they do others. Pre-listing packet goals, a pre-listing packet and a listing presentation differ, and the benefits of both. Pre-sales, the pre-listing materials are designed to build the seller's confidence in you and to answer their questions and objections before you actually give the presentation. They use an agent because they need advice and expertise, so you want to make them feel better, understand the process, and your value proposition. Save time. A strong pre-listing package will make the consultation smoother, because you're gonna already have tackled common objections that they have. It states your value in the pre-listing packet, so it tells the seller what you bring to them in their transaction. So if they are interviewing other people, they're going to know already what you bring, so that can be very helpful to you. And it remembers that sellers have specific goals they intend to achieve, and this is a crucial step to discovering the goals, and telling them how you'll achieve them. So the criteria for pre-listing packet, will you review it in the presentation? So you include, you should fill one of the criteria, you should review it, I think. Does it eliminate the need for a listing consultation? No, it does not. It is a primer for education you will provide at the listing consultation. So you're using it as education for the actual appointment. The pre-listing packet, this is kind of what, it could look like, that you could do. But you should keep the pre-listing packet to less than 10 pages if you can. I actually, keep it less than that. But some key terms that you should have, you have a cover page, your contact information, a promise to them, selling process overview, general pricing information. Again, I wait till the consultation for that. Value proposition, broker office personal metrics, stuff about you, client testimonials, previous listings you've done, other services, Keller Mortgage, Keller Covered, home front mortgage, just different ones we offer. Make sure, you don't have any errors in your documents. They're organized, it's well written, and it's in a folder for them to have, or you're just, emailing them the packet if it's ahead of time. So obviously you're not, bringing it with you. Seller consultation, preparation checklist. So review a checklist at a high level through seller checklist. Deliver your pre-listing packet. Deliver it on time when you said you would. Confirm appointment date and time and location. Follow up the day before to confirm the appointment and ask any questions you may have missed on the initial call. You'll be meeting at the house you have listed. Don't meet at the office. Meet at their house. Make sure someone knows where you're going. For instance, I went to one and the person is like, could you please just go through the garage and open them and meet me in the kitchen? well, it's not exactly a safe situation to walk into someone's house and kitchen, so I actually had an escort. My husband actually escorted me into the property. And I just told them just for security purposes, I do have somebody here with me who's going to walk me in and make sure. They could have told me that they were elderly and they couldn't get up. Why they did not, don't know. But again, I needed to make sure I was safe. Safety's key. Ensure all decision makers attend. If it's 2 people, they all should be there. Otherwise that's a wasted appointment. So that's also something that should be, a question, who is involved in the selling decision. Complete and practice your listing presentation. So make sure, your materials are prepared and printed for the appointment, including, have your listing agreement, have your papers. Review the lead sheet, go over the lead sheet before you, go to the consultation. So their profile, their goals, everything they filled out is ahead of time. Arrive to the listing presentation in a professional manner, dressed appropriately, it's a job interview, most people, but if you're a jeans person and you wear jeans and a suit coat, then okay, you have to be you, but I mean, mostly I'm gonna be dressed up for any listing appointment.
Can I ask for number 3, ensure all decision makers attend?
Yeah.
If you have, let's say you have like a younger couple who's getting advice from, and maybe like money toward a down payment from parents.
But that would be more for buyers, but yeah,
Oh, right,
no, you're good.
okay, right.
But if parents need to be in, a buyer consultation specifically, like if they're not gonna sign without their parents' blessing, then yeah, they should probably be there. Say, hey, I would let, you just mentioned that your parents are gonna be a very big part of this decision. Do they need to be a part of your decision on who you're signing with? And like, do they need to be at the consultation? I had a client bring them up. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like that could reduce some of the, talking in, you talking in one ear and.
absolutely. So if they feel like, if they're gonna be part of the decision on that they're working with you, then they should. Yeah. Be part of their arrive, consider the quality of your materials and cleanliness of your vehicle if they're looking at it, different things like that. And then I'm just gonna skip the ahas because we've gotta keep going on. The goal is to get a signed listing agreement. So you want to create a great impression to build the seller's confidence in you as a real estate agent of their choice. You want to share your price recommendation. Again, the initial list price for their property and your reasoning behind it. Again, I do tend to do that a 2-part step. You don't have to. I like to do it in a 2-part step, and if you think that they're interviewing other people, you can. Or you can go out and say, look, this is what I think. However, I do want to confirm that so I can narrow down and make sure I have an exact listing. But this would be my mindset. But sometimes when you go back in and look at some of them after comparing it, my mind could be a little bit different.
Did you say, are you bringing comps to that initial listing meeting?
So, I mean, this is telling you to, right? So it depends on whether you're 1 step or 2 step. If it's, a lot of people do want the comps, right? I'll have them. I don't necessarily know if I want to give them up because again, you could give them the keys to the castle and they can take it and hand it to the next person who maybe has more experience. And guess what? They listed for exactly what you did. We're going to, and done all the same things because I've had it happen when I first started. I had somebody, well, we need someone who has more experience and who can do this, and they listed it down to the dollar amount that I said. It was $119 was exactly what they said. And they did all the things that I said because they were surprised. I said, they're like, you showed our listing. I said, yeah, I had a buyer. I told you. I am an active agent. Like, didn't know that. I said, I felt that you listed for what I said. Oh, well, you had great advice. Well, thank you. It just needs to be dependent upon what you think, but some people will You know, sometimes I'll give them a price recommendation range, right? And so maybe my range will be like a $10,000 range or a $15,000 range. And say, well, now what I need to do is a second step and go back in. And so we'll set up the appointment, we'll pull off, I don't want to take too much of your time today. Unless, you know, you're ready to move forward on this journey with me, then we can, and we'll pull it all up and we can get that ready for you today, you know. Set expectations for how you will market the home and work with the sellers. But more and more people, like I said, they do want to know exactly what you list for, because a lot of people want the keys for free. So you don't have to figure it out yourself. You can design, you know, templates and stuff for listing, you know, appointment and stuff, but you know, it is just kind of just building that confidence. Like I had met with somebody and we talked about price, like, I think this is what I would do, but of course, if you decide to work with me, we'll re-talk about it and we can decide. I had told them somewhere between 289 and 300,000. I'm not quite sure where I want to be. And I said, maybe a slide over, I'm not sure. And they had me back and we hashed it out. And we decided that 294.9 was the way to go, in my opinion. You know. How the listing presentation meets the seller needs and wants. So if you know what they need, and that's looking at some of the pre-questions. If marketing is super important to them, right? You're gonna have a big section on marketing and what you bring to the table with marketing and photos. So you can customize a listing presentation. You can go to answers.kw.com. Or search Ignite reference guide and go to some of the presentations and create a listing presentation and designs. And show how to, then this is how to find the listing presentation and designs. Flip back to our chart on what sellers want. With that handy, I'd like, do you guys have any questions on? They want us to do a workshop here, but we still have quite a bit if we, to stay on schedule for what you guys are wanting. But let's talk about it a little bit. What do you think, going through the listing presentation, you know, in Command, has anybody looked at the listing presentation in Command? Has anybody worked with one previously, a listing presentation?
Worked with one previously, but not through Command.
Okay. So it's just in designs and you can find some different packets and they're just preset packets that other people have used and you can tweak them. So you tweak them to what matters, again, to the seller. So that's what the whole point is about that. How does each section address the items the sellers want from our, you know, pie chart? So that pie chart that we had, obviously they want the old person. That doesn't matter because you're the new one and you're gonna win, right? But on the pie chart, you want to address all the things that they wanted, price competitively, you know, all those different pieces. I'll help you put everything together. If you decide to work with me, don't tell them the information at the appointment. I make that mistake all the time and it always backfires. On me personally, because you give information for free and then they take it. Or you too. And how might you customize a section to meet their goals and needs, right? Do you change a portion of your presentation to tailor to who they are? You know, if there's somebody that is more visual, right? So do you have some more pictures and examples of what you've done marketing wise? Do you have pictures of some of your old listing photos, right? That your photographer's taken, right? Then you can see how good they are. Do you have an old video that you're going to share with them? They're going to think, oh, this is one of the videos that we did. This was great. You know, these are some of the slide reels that we put together for you. And we market on Facebook, but it shows them at world examples. So you have to decide what they need, and make sure that they address the goals we discussed, create a great impression, price recommendation, and second, setting expectations. So how you're going to do all those things. So you can have a section on finding the right price for you. What do I do? We look at your house, right? I go back in, you know, we get tools from realtors, you know, all the different things about how you're going to make sure that it's the right price for you. And you're looking at days on market, you're looking at all the things that matter. Do you guys have any questions or want to talk more about that? So your needs come first. Why is this page, the listing presentation included? At the end of the day, real estate is a relationship business. This part, is important about the relationship. Doing this piece of business will go a very long way. When you, present your listing presentation, get ready to take notes. Visualize your dream scenario for selling your own home. What is the one thing, you know, and you want to say your needs come first, right? You know, the seller's needs, right? That's what that's meaning. But we want to take care of you, and I can't read, so I'll get up to see what their example of what they've got in here. What they're putting about, you know, visualize you selling your home, was one thing that has to happen to make the dream, you know, work for you. We want to, how can I make it work for you? Why is it important? We could add one more thing to the process to make it better for you. What do we need to do? That's important, right? Because when you miss a listing appointment, what was one thing that I could have done for you? I didn't like the suggested timeline. Well, timelines are flexible, right? I prefer to do it this way, but if you asked me to do it this way, I could do it different. And the same difference is I've had somebody, well, I really, really like you, but I just wish you would do this for, you know, this percent instead. And you have to decide if that value is worth it to you, you know, when you start discounting yourself, then, you know, you're still paying, or they still want the same service, you know what I mean? And you say, well, you know, I spend those kind of objections, but if your boss asks you for extras, right? Would you tell him that he could, to get the extras, you know, he wants you to take a decrease, would you? You know, would you want discount service? Because if you're getting discount service, sometimes you get discount service. You know, and I don't provide discount service, I provide high level of service, and but if you wanted that price, I could probably do that for you, but I'm not gonna be able to meet the videos. And I probably won't be able to do the Facebook ads, because again, that additional is gonna help me pay for those things. And we can do simple basic photos, right? Does that make sense? But if you want, you know, the higher level, I'm happy to do that for you, and then, you know what I mean? So those are things, but if that is, and you were okay with to take it because you really needed it, then that's up to you. But that's the one thing, I think that's important. It's one thing that would make the process better for you and why it's important. I think that is a really important slide to go with them, because if there was another agent and something in their process and they like you better, but something in their process was better, if you could add it, would that make the difference? And even asking that, what would make the difference for us to go ahead and partner today and start this journey? You can ask them, you know, those are the things that I would do.
I like coming right out and just asking. I like that method.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't know, because like, if you don't get, you know, and if at the end of the day, if one thing that's important is that you've sold 16 houses in, you know, Amelia, and they want to know that you have, well, you haven't, so you're not gonna be the fit. You're never gonna be the fit. You know what I mean? Like, it's never gonna work, so you don't wanna waste even your time. But if you find that, you say, well, no, I haven't, but I mean, I haven't had that many listings, but I've had this many buyers, and I've seen 20 houses in the last 2 months alone in this area. So,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can you repeat how you phrase that? What would make the difference for you in order for us to?
If we could make just one more thing to this, add one more thing to this process to make it better, what would it be? And so it's more, if we wanted to put together, you know, sign this listing agreement today, what would help you do that so we can get on our process? That would be the second question.
I am knowledgeable and caring and the best agent for these clients. They will appreciate my expertise and preparation and choose me to represent them as they sell their home. So if you're going into this is something that we had into our buyer consultations, it's just having confidence and knowing that I am the best person. There's no negativity. You don't want to go into it then with the mindset that they could choose anybody else or they would choose anybody else. And then if they're having other appointments, you know, again, you could ask them, well, what else is it that you're looking for that you're not seeing that I'm providing here today? You know what I mean? And then maybe, and that's kind of part of it, but be confident. Ask them to, I don't know about that, you know, you repeat after you, but it's, we don't probably need to repeat this together, but, just be confident that you are the right person, whether you have sold 100 houses or you've sold none. It's, you have the mindset, fake it until you make it, if you're newer. This is what you do, this is what you do every day, and I'm the one that's gonna get it done for you. They may not ask your experience. Opportunities and update every stage of your relationship with the transaction, so. This is just if you're using command, right, specifically, but you can update, you can put them in as opportunities and you can update them, like, okay, we're working to try to get them, you know, into it. Listing is where you show off your work. In addition to going through the listing presentation, you'll preview the home and ask for the listing agreement. And then you want to update command so you know where you are. And you can always archive. If it ends up not working out, you have the appointment, then you can just archive it on to the next opportunity. Listing walkthrough. So when you arrive to their home, it's important that you're establish yourself as a knowledgeable professional. Greet your clients, thank them for the opportunity, and ask them if you can leave your things in the kitchen and you're going to conduct a walkthrough. It's always a good idea to compliment certain things in the home, regardless of if you're like, oh gosh, this is going to be a mess, right? You don't want that to be the case. They're obviously proud of it. A compliment isn't just kind of shows you see the value in their home. Why do you suggest leaving your things in the kitchen? The table provides a great space to talk, etc. Wherever you're going to do the talking, it's usually a table of some form or at a counter bar, island or something. The walkthrough is going to further inform you what you'll write for the listing information, your marketing plan, and your pricing strategy. They say to walk through it alone. It's best to come to your conclusions without their narration. Most people would walk through it with you. I'm not the type of person that would argue and be like, go on. I would love it if you would show me your house. It's more personable. I don't really understand that part, but that is what they said. So you want to do your checklist and things with MLS. Doing the MLS, like listening to what they're talking about, that's more. It's a second meeting, right, when we're ready to list on home. You know what I mean? Like if we're getting closer to being on the market.
You would do this before signing, right?
Yeah, the walkthrough is just part of your like consultation that you get. Handwritten note, whether you get the listing or not, mail them a handwritten note. Thank you immediately after the appointment. It may seem a small thing, but handwritten notes stand out. So if you mail them something that says, hey, thank you for your time today, I appreciate it. You know, some people will like that. Now, if they see somebody that's more technological, then send them an email, send them a text. But again, something from you is the stickler. But handwritten notes can be better. Grading gets better now. Okay, give this.
Oh, yeah, they did put it in the middle.
Yeah, like where? Okay. Okay, I'm like, what in the world? listing agreement. Which I didn't bring one, but if they didn't come to, but let's talk about a listing agreement. Who's looked at one? You guys have all seen one before. You've seen a listing agreement before, right? Yeah, okay. Talking about it, listing agreements are gonna be that. They should be simple, right? There shouldn't be a lot of things, past them. What I will say specifically in your listing agreement, have your time frame in there if you have provisions, like, if you cancel or for whatever reason, you can make, if it expires and they don't want to renew, if they're wanting to do. They only want to do like 3 months, I try to do mine for a year, but if they want to do 3 months or just 6 months, right? You can write in there that says, with all due respect, that we're gonna pay for the photos. We're gonna pay for the photos. But in the event, that we cancel within 3 months, you're gonna reimburse me for my marketing and stuff, and that's gonna total $500. You can write that into your listing agreement if you feel that's the case, like if they're really wanting you to do it, like in a really short amount of time, protect yourself. Make sure you talk to them about, in the listing agreements now, they have about unrepresented buyers. Give yourself an extra % for representing an unrepresented buyer, because you still do have to do a contract of some form with somebody, you're still going to have to wrangle them, things like that, make sure that whether they want to go ahead and offer a certain commission up front, or they just want to negotiate it in the contract, just know everything about, the listing agreement that you can, before you do it, make sure you know what you're including. Is the refrigerator included? Is, all the appliances, because again, our purchase contracts say those are all automatically included, so we are excluding certain things. We need to know that. TV wall mount brackets, right? That's something that you all should know. Those are automatically included in any listing contract. Have that talk with your sellers, make sure they know it. When you are signing a listing agreement. Because it's one thing, don't think bathroom mirrors, people sometimes want to take those, they actually stay. So make sure that they know that. And if they need to be excluded, if you see an incredibly decorative chandelier or something that tends to be more high value, I always say, does, everything included, all your light fixtures, all of your, things are, or do you have any inclusions? Because sometimes people take really custom light fixtures with them. Okay, I would recommend we take that down before we go on the market, and replace it with something new, just make sure you've talked about all those things with refrigerators and all those things. You have it in writing that it's going to be included, so that if something doesn't happen and, you don't have anything funky come up. Do you guys have any questions on the listing agreement itself?
No. Do you
So-
go like line by line
What?
on the listing agreement?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. I'll follow it, specifically, I'll go by sections, and explaining section, make sure they understand it. The biggest one that people have issues in their listings, stuff that's included. And it is, even when you see decorative curtain rods, they say, so people, when it comes
Really?
down to the end, and they think, and they'll say, you didn't have that conversation, or you didn't tell me that I couldn't take my chandelier. Now you're responsible for buying a chandelier. Right?
My
No.
husband said he wanted to take the tree. He wanted to take a tree down. And I'm like, we're leaving the tree.
Right, but there are things, if people have gardens, right? I've seen people take their gardens. Right, certain planter boxes, you wanna have those talks, because you don't know, but I do go through section by section. More specifically, that section of the inclusions of what is in, I go through each thing, so they know real specifically in that section. So let's wrap up, we visited what we meant by A, qualified sellers. We covered, how to get the appointment, focused on the listing appointment itself. And we went over the listing agreement and other relative, documents. So what's your call to action today? You know, has your mindset changed on listing appointments? Or your thinking? Anybody? Was this helpful?
Yes.
And what would you do? What do you feel differently about, you know, what we talked about, like, from what you had thought? Do you have any different behaviors that you're going to do that you thought you would do differently? Anybody?
I just feel more comfortable about it now. A little
Yeah.
more comfortable. I think that's not gonna go away until I get experience, but it does make me
Right.
walking through the steps.
Let-
I can see. like,
Let me also give you this piece of advice. You're interviewing them also. You do not have to work with everybody. You may find in that appointment. For you. You know, you can tell if somebody might be difficult. Then how'd you agree? And it could just be more trouble than it's worth to you. Take your instincts. It makes a huge difference. I have learned things the hard way with stuff and really go with your instincts with buyers, with sellers, right? If there's a red flag, then take the red flag and say, you know what? I don't know if we mesh, but you know, I do know someone who I think would be better, and you can refer it out. Because the problem is if you get in relationships like that, you know, you can open yourself up to a bunch of issues that you don't want to have to deal with sometimes. I had a seller that would yell at me every day. Jojo, I was brand new, I needed the business, right? So I'm like, I'd be fine. Should have known when he said, please put the contract that can fire you within 2 weeks at any time I want to. You know, you should, I should have known better even then, but. Oh well. I eventually did sell the man 7 house, or I sold 7 houses for him. But after the second one, we had a talk and he said, we will not be doing any more deals together until you can be nice to me. He had another agent, then he called me and I found out he had another agent on a different one before his house went live, and I said, yeah, I said, what did we talk about? I'll be nice. And then I would remind him every time he would get me, and then we did something, and then I raised, you know, commissions on something one time, and it's more expensive because I said, well, you know, I'll do a good job. I had sat with it, 1-800 got jumped for 7 hours, because he couldn't get his stuff. So we made it, I got my money back, right? But just know, you know, and same with buyers, like I had someone come up with something and my husband said, you need to fire them, and I'm like, I wouldn't help them, like it's it. And that, you know, there's just things, just know your value.
I think it was really helpful to go back. You know, I think those pre-listing packet questions, I think are really helpful. And then, you know, I think what you said about how to approach not giving them all the keys and trying to be a little strategic about protecting your interests and finding ways of figuring out what their questions and objections might be so that you can not hold yourself, but highlight the facets of your skills that can be most useful for them. I think that's really helpful.
And at the end of the day, if you have to go to great length, like super great lengths to super sell yourself, and really ask yourself the question, will this be worth it? Like if you are doing that, just. Because you can be new, but it's, you need to, I've learned. But yeah, with the keys to the castle thing, and I've even made that mistake last week, but I did it anyway, because they kept pushing and pushing and I did it. And everything in me told me not to do it. Yeah. I went a different direction, but again, online lead. you know, I would say with online leads, you know, very low conversion, you can get a great, no. Right, anybody have anything for me?
Are you in the instructor list or? For the review?